Hello, Yakri here with another Warframe video. This time I want to talk about what makes the Dex Sybaris so great. The Dex Sybaris is a semi-automatic burst fire rifle with a lever action style to it, and it looks fantastic in my opinion. Probably its greatest quality is the visuals, which I prefer to either the Sybaris or Sybaris Prime. And it is also a very good endgame viable weapon. Although it will start to have difficulty with enemies around level 130 at least, tougher enemies, right? Okay, so let's look at the build I've got on the Dex Sybaris. So this is the build that I typically use, or a variation on it with gas damage for lower level enemies. You don't have to use Argon Scope if you don't have access to it. You can just replace that with an elemental mod, either a 90% or a dual stat, doesn't matter. It will be pretty effective either way. Argon Scope I think is a little bit better, but it doesn't make a big difference, and you have to actually land headshots if you have Argon Scope, so it can be a little bit inconvenient sometimes, although I prefer that playstyle personally. Now let's take a look at the Dex Sybaris versus some high level enemies. It's going to take a little bit of work to kill level 130 heavy gunners, right? Which you'd kind of expect that it would, since a lot of weapons actually don't do too well in these tests. I feel like that's something I need to point out because I've got a decent number of videos of weapons just obliterating these guys, but that's because those weapons are kind of like the standout rather than the rule, right? Like, not everybody can be the Lanka and just one-shot an entire group of these with a crazy gas build, right? Okay, so not too bad. I can kill them in 2 clips. Was that? Yeah, 2 clips. As long as you're landing headshots consistently, which, you know, can be kind of hard to do, but sometimes, but still. Really not very bad for level 130 enemies. These are kind of pushing it in terms of difficulty compared to the hardest things you're going to run into on the star map, or, you know, doing any kind of Warframe event, which would be like Eximus units in Sword E3 Survival, which I think would be like around level 120, 130. So those guys will give you a similar level of difficulty to these dudes, but, you know, not a whole lot of units exist that will. So let's look at what this is like versus some lower level enemies, right? And I'll turn the AI on and jump around and shoot them so you can see how that goes. But I'm going to say right now that what I really like about this weapon, the reason I want to make a video where I talk about, like, what's so great about it, is that it has a great feel to how you fire it, right? It's kind of like a, it's got kind of a sniper rifle feel to it, without actually being a sniper rifle. You can pick off enemies, it feels very punchy, right? The lever action and the, whole reload speed, firing style feels very good. That's the only way I can put it, I think. And it's personally my favorite of any semi-automatic rifle in the game, at least out of the ones I've collected, which is most, but not all of them. I think I still need like the Latron Prime and the Sybaris Prime itself, which incidentally is a little bit better than the Sybaris. Some people are calling it I've seen some people call it a side grade. It's not really a side grade, it's an upgrade. It loses 5% crit chance, but that's basically irrelevant. But it's not substantially better than the Sybaris Prime, right? It's got a little bit higher damage, a little bit better fire rate, a little bit better mag size with worse reload, and that's one of the reasons I doubt I'm going to prefer the Sybaris Prime once I do pick it up, and probably why I haven't yet, because the increased reload speed is not to my preference for this kind of weapon. I really like that the Dex Sybaris reloads quickly at 1.5 seconds, right? So it's not super speedy, but it's fast enough, and it doesn't really break up your firing too much, right? You know what I'm saying? Because at certain points, too much reload can get pretty irritating if it's a weapon that doesn't have like an enormous ammo size, which neither the Dex Sybaris nor the Sybaris Prime have. So this pretty much covers my video on the Sybaris Prime, actually. Or the Dex Sybaris. It feels good to fire, it looks really cool, and that's why I like it. And of course it helps that it is certainly endgame viable, and not like endgame viable in the sense that you can suffer through it with 6 Forma. Well, You guess 6. You still need 5 Forma for it to be ideal. But, you know, maxed out Forma, you can suffer through it. No. It's actually quite good on its own. You don't need a Riven mod for it to be good. You don't even need Argon Scope, despite the fact that I'm using it for it to be good, or any particularly rare mods at all. So that pretty much wraps it up. I thought I would make a video on this before I do any other, why is some weapon so great videos, because we have the Warframe anniversary coming up soon, and you should be able to get a chance to get this weapon during the Warframe anniversary. The actual anniversary is March 21st, I think. I'm not sure when they'll start doing anniversary events, who knows, but you should have a chance to get this, most likely, considering how they've done past anniversary events, and especially if you're a new player and you don't have access to a ton of weapons yet, this is a great weapon to get. Feels good to fire, great in high-level missions, and should come with a potato on it already. If you're not, it's still a great thing to collect in terms of style, especially since we've got that like lotus symbol worked into the top, and you couldn't really see it in the video. You can't. It's actually pretty hard to see in game too, but there is like a little lotus symbol that appears in front of the gun when it's firing, which is kind of neat as well. All right. So that concludes the video. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this content, please like, comment, subscribe, etc. And I'll see you next time. Yakri out.